message on this tax day 2015 was simple. Fast food workers in the city need a raise.
In New York, 3 million people make less than $15 an hour.
Across the country, protests from those who demand to be paid more for their labors, who have reached their boiling point with a debate over those who are paid far too much at the top and those who are taken advantage of at the bottom. But take a step back and consider the reality of the minimum wage debate and what it will mean to every pocket in America. Welcome back to MidPoint. The chair of the program in Business and Finance and assistant professor of Business and Economics at King's College in New York City, Professor Brian Brenberg, and the director of labor policy at the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, former special assistant to the Assistant Secretary for Administration and Management in the Department of Labor, Vincent Vernuccio. Gentlemen, I thank you both for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Professor, I'm going to start with you. $15 an hour. The people out there who are protesting say that is not too much to expect and we are being taken advantage of. What would you answer those critics?
I'd say it's could be a very, very risky move. All the data that we have on minimum wage increases, most of the data suggests that when you increase the minimum wage, you reduce employment. So when you talk about a huge increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour, we don't even really have research to suggest what that's going to do, but there's no reason to believe it's going to do anything but amplify the negative effects we already see with a smaller increase. So asking for $15 minimum wage is really asking for just higher unemployment.
Vincent, do you agree?
I do agree. I'll leave a lot of the economics to the professor, but Ed, one thing that I may have to disagree with you on is, you say that it's they, and you make it sound like it's the protesters that are going to receive this minimum wage. A lot of what we're seeing is it's not actually the minimum wage workers or the McDonald's workers or the fast food workers that are doing these protests. A lot of it is orchestrated by the union, by the Service Employees International Union, to be specific, that spent about $23 million last year organizing these protests in basically a self-unionization effort to try to strong-arm McDonald's into giving them union members and making unionization easier by taking away the secret ballot from the very workers they're trying to represent.
Agreed on that. However, can we agree, though, Vincent, and agreed on what you're pointing out with regard to the unions being behind it, but aren't we still talking about people who want to be paid $15 an hour at the end of the day?
Well, I think a lot of the protesters out there are not the people that are saying, hey, we need to get paid. They're union organizers that are trying to get outsiders to do these protests. Yeah, there's going to be minimum wage workers in the protest to an extent, but most of it is simply orchestrated by the unions and our union organizers themselves that are out there.
Professor, wouldn't you also say that, and again, I think what Vincent is saying is correct because there has been a lot of allegations here that it is the unions behind this, but do we not still have an issue in this country where people are going to be complaining that the CEOs make too much, you make too much profit, and you need to be giving some of the money back to us? I'm not trying to sound the socialistic bell here. However, let's just say that's what the argument is, correct?
And everybody wants to get paid more money. The question is, how do you get there? And the answer is the minimum wage just isn't going to get you there. Minimum wage reduces employment. It doesn't have a stimulative effect. And when you're talking about this big of an increase, you're really moving into uncharted territory here. You are seeing today that there are many companies that are raising wages, but they're not doing it because of minimum wage laws. They're doing it because the economy is starting to grow, unemployment's starting to fall, and they want to compete for new business. They want to attract new talent, and so they're raising wages voluntarily. That's the only way we're ever going to get to the point where people can become more satisfied with their wages if we see stronger economic growth. That's the direction we want to move in.
So, Vincent, from a labor policy standpoint then, because I understand Professor Brenberg is the one who takes care of a lot of the economics here, but you're looking at the labor side of things. So what at least are the early steps we need to take, or can we take any steps in this current economy to try and fix this?
Well, experience fixes it. I mean, if you're talking about a micro level, and I like what the professor was saying about, you have to start somewhere. Minimum wage is a starting wage. I mean, 2/3 of minimum wage workers usually get a raise within the first year. What we're talking about is people, mostly young people, just getting into the workforce that need to grab that first rung on the economic ladder and start climbing up and making a higher wage that way. So what we need to do is we need to make it accessible for people that don't have the skills, that don't have the experience, to start somewhere, start getting that work experience, start getting a work ethic, know how to show up on time, and that's how they're going to get ahead. And they do it with music.
Well, we're also looking at, too, and let's look at some of the dollars here, because I'm looking at a quote right here from the Cleveland Plain Dealer saying that adjunct professors nationally make about $2,700 per class per semester. So they're saying that they make less than $15 an hour. So aren't we dealing with, though, a labor problem which doesn't always just take the people who are starting out, but it does affect a lot of people above that as well?
Well, in that case, if they are in demand, then they should be asking for more. And if their services are valued above $15 an hour, then that's what the market will pay them. And that's only right. I mean, you look at places like North Dakota with the oil boom, and some of the areas where there is a high demand both for skilled and unskilled labor, and the workers in that area are making more because it's supply and demand. And when that demand is higher, and when you can supply what that demand needs, that's how these workers are getting raises.
Professor, are we simply getting to that point where we have to realize that some people, and again, I'm just pointing this out from the critics, they'll say some people feel a sense of entitlement, maybe they don't deserve $15 an hour, and at the same point you have to understand that if you start kicking $15 an hour, then the price of everything else is going to go up. That $3 hamburger will be $8.50, although I got to stop. And there are those people in the back that said that's only because the big companies want to make more profit and they're afraid of giving up some of that profit.
You know, you can try to slice this any way you want, Ed, but at the end of the day, raising the minimum wage just isn't a sustainable way to bring people's wages up. There'll be some lucky few that get that raise, and maybe that'll help them to some degree, but you'll have people who simply can't get jobs as a result of the jobs going away.
Then what is sustainable?
The only way this is going to work is sustainable as economic growth where companies are competing for workers and workers have the opportunity to negotiate wages. That's only going to happen in a growing economy. That's where policymakers have to have their focus. They've got their focus on the wrong things right now.
All right, Vincent, I only got 20 seconds left. We have to get, you would then say that you have to get the labor unions in line as well, right?
People should be able to organize if they can do it with a secret ballot. They shouldn't be pressured into it. And the union should not be strong-arming companies like the SEIU is doing to McDonald's via these fast food protests. And that's not a way for economic recovery.
Well, it is definitely SEIU that has been involved in a lot of these protests as well. So, gentlemen, we've opened up the Pandora's box. We'll continue to look at it as we go by. Professor Brian Brenberg, Vincent Vernuccio, thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. We'll do it again soon.
Ed, thanks for having us on.
Great to be here.
Gentlemen,
Thanks.
take care. 70 years since one of the largest mass murders in the history of the planet. This is a special day to ensure that people never forget. Next up, the importance of never forgetting.